You added compost to your lettuce bed because you wanted bigger, sweeter leaves. But that one decision might be exactly why your lettuce tastes so bitter you do not even want to eat it. You probably did what I did. You hauled a few shovelfuls from the pile. You spent time building that pile. You saved kitchen scraps and leaves and yard waste all year. You put in the work. So naturally, you want to use it everywhere. I know the feeling. After spending months making compost, it feels wrong to leave it sitting there. You mixed it into your raised bed. You patted yourself on the back. Your lettuce grew fast, real fast. Big, soft, giant leaves. You were proud for about 2 weeks. Then you tasted one. Bitter. Not that pleasant, peppery taste good lettuce can have. Just a harsh, unpleasant bitterness. And a few days later, that beautiful plant shot up a stalk. It bolted. Leaves turned tough. Harvest over. You got salad for a week and then nothing. You thought you were feeding your soil. You were actually stressing your plants out. Here's the first thing you need to do. Stop. Walk over to your compost pile. Take a handful and smell it. If it smells sour, like vinegar, ammonia, or something rotten, it is not ready for your lettuce bed yet. That compost is still breaking down, and young lettuce roots are much more sensitive to it. They can get damaged or just struggle to grow. You will not see it right away. The plant looks fine on top while the root tips are struggling down below. Then the leaves droop. Then the bitterness sets in. The plant is under stress, and stressed lettuce is much more likely to bolt instead of giving you the sweet, tender leaves you wanted. That means your harvest is gone. 3 seconds smelling that pile can save your entire lettuce bed. So your first job is to check it before you even pick up a shovel. I repeated that mistake for several growing seasons before I finally realized the problem was not the lettuce. It was my compost. I had a pile I thought was ready. It sat for months. I turned it once in a while. It looked like dirt. I put about 3 inches on my raised bed. I mixed it in deep. My lettuce exploded. I mean it. Leaves the size of dinner plates. I thought I cracked the code. Then I bit into one. Spit it out. I could not figure it out. The soil was dark and rich. Plants were huge. What was the problem? I called my neighbor who had been growing vegetables longer than I had. He walked over to my pile. He took one whiff. He said, "You are killing them with kindness." That pile is not finished breaking down yet. I threw away years of harvests because I could not wait an extra 3 months. Patience is not just a virtue. In gardening, it is a requirement. Now let us talk about how much compost you actually need. You are probably using too much. I know I did. More was better. I layered it on thick. Here's the truth. Compost is not a fertilizer you keep adding every week. It is a soil builder. It is a long-term investment. For a raised bed, that usually means adding a thin layer before planting, not filling the bed with compost. About 1 to 2 inches mixed into the top few inches of soil per season is usually enough, not a wheelbarrow full. That is it. More than that, and the plant puts all its energy into fast, soft growth instead of building strong, flavorful leaves. You get soft, watery leaves with weak flavor. And very soft, fast-growing leaves can be more attractive to pests like aphids and slugs. I have seen it 100 times. A bed with moderate compost stays clean. A bed with heavy compost gets eaten alive. So what does good compost look like? You do not need a lab test. You need 3 checks. First, the smell. It should smell like rich forest soil after rain. Not sour, not like ammonia, not like rotten eggs. If it smells earthy and clean, it is probably ready. Second, the look. Dark and crumbly. You should not recognize any original plant material. No recognizable pieces of kitchen scraps, leaves, or yard waste. It should look like a brown sponge. Third, the feel. Grab a handful and squeeze. It should hold together loosely. If you squeeze hard, a few drops of water might come out. Not a stream, not a puddle, a few drops. If it is sopping wet, it is too fresh and decomposition is still active. If it is bone dry, microbial activity slows down and the compost will work much more slowly in your soil. You want that middle ground. Not too wet, not too dry, That compost will feed your soil without overwhelming your plants. Now let us talk about clay and sand. This is where compost really shines. Most of us are dealing with one extreme or the other. If your soil turns into concrete when it dries, you have clay. Lettuce roots are shallow. They struggle to push through that. Compost opens it up. It creates space between the tiny particles. It lets water drain. It lets air in. On the other hand, if water disappears 5 minutes after you irrigate, you have sand. Nutrients wash out. Compost works like a sponge. It holds onto moisture and releases it slowly. It keeps the roots cool. Lettuce loves cool roots. Heat and stress are two of the biggest reasons lettuce decides to bolt. If your soil stays hot and dry, lettuce is much more likely to bolt. A layer of compost on top works as mulch. A thin layer, about ½ an inch, around your lettuce plants keeps the soil cool. It prevents big swings between very dry and very wet conditions. Those swings stress the plant and can affect quality. Consistent moisture gives you sweet, crisp leaves. Here is another mistake I see all the time. People put fresh compost right against the stems. It touches the plant. That is a problem. That fresh compost can hold too much moisture right at the crown. That is a recipe for rot. You want to pull it back from the stem by about 1 inch. Create a little moat. That gives the stem room to breathe, and it keeps moisture away from that vulnerable spot. I lost a whole bed of butter lettuce to rot because I mulched too close. The plants looked perfect until one morning they just collapsed. Stems turned to mush. I thought it was disease. It was me smothering them. A ½ inch gap changed everything. Now I get clean, healthy plants every time. One more thing. Do not add compost every week. I know it is tempting. You see the pile and you want to use it. But compost releases nutrients slowly. They do not disappear in a week. If you add more, you are layering. You are changing the soil structure. Too many changes can disturb the balance of the soil instead of improving it. I add compost mainly before planting. Then I may top dress lightly during the season if the bed needs it. 2 applications total. My lettuce has never been better. Crisp. Sweet. It does not bolt for weeks longer than my neighbors. They ask me the secret. I tell them I stopped touching it. Less is more. What about using compost as your only source of nutrients? That is another trap. Compost is a soil conditioner. It has nutrients, yes, but it does not always have everything your lettuce needs in the right balance. You might still need to supplement. Lettuce is a heavy nitrogen feeder. It needs it in small, consistent doses. Not one huge hit. Compost releases nitrogen slowly. That is good. But in the early stages, before roots have spread out, your lettuce might not access enough. That is when you see yellowing. That is when you panic and add more compost. The cycle repeats. The fix is simple. Use compost as your base. Then, when the plants are about 2 inches tall, a mild balanced fertilizer at reduced strength can help young plants if the soil is lacking. That gets them through the early growth spurt. Then let the compost take over. That is the balance. Let us tie this all together. You have a lettuce bed. You want sweet, crisp leaves. You do not want bitterness. You do not want bolting. The answer is not more compost. It is better compost used correctly. Remember the 3 rules. Finished compost. Moderate amounts. Consistent moisture. Check your pile. Does it smell like earth? Is it dark and crumbly? Good. Add 1 to 2 inches. Mix it into the top few inches, pull it back from the stems, then stop. Do not add more. Do not water obsessively. Let the soil do its job. Let the plant grow at its own pace. If the weather gets hot, top dress a thin layer as mulch to keep roots cool. That is the system. It is boring. It is slow. It works. The mistake most gardeners make is thinking the answer is always more. More compost, more water, more fertilizer. But the best gardens are not built by adding everything. They are built by knowing what to add, when to add it, and when to stop. Good compost does not force plants to grow. It creates conditions where plants can grow naturally. When you understand that, everything changes. You stop fighting your garden. You start working with it. That is the secret to the best lettuce you have ever tasted. If this saved you from a bitter crop, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more real-world gardening advice that does not sound like a textbook. And drop a comment. Tell me your biggest compost disaster. I read them all. We can learn from each other. Now go check that pile. Take a handful, smell it, trust your nose. It knows more than you think.